pray every night that God gives me more time to, to make my legacy. And I'm thankful for the time He has given me, and hopefully through time, I know exactly what I'm here for, and I know exactly my purpose. But until then, I'm going to continue to try to be the best man I can be every day on earth. And whether that's just by smiling at people, like you said, helping people out, helping them with their homework, or just being a dad and trying to be the best dad I can be. Try to be the best brother I can be. Try to be the best father, the best cousin, best friend. I think if I do those things right in life, then what happens after is, for everyone else to decide. But I just want to do what I can do while I'm here to kind of build that legacy.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Moments of Aha. This is where we want you to understand that nobody is coming to save you. But the good news is that you are the hero of your own life. We believe that you already have everything that you're looking for inside of you. But how do you begin to tap into that inner hero of yours? So we bring on guests who are everyday heroes, who have developed these internal qualities and traits that we're all born with, but they have deliberately and intentionally developed these internal qualities to the point where they've become superpowers to align with their inner hero. So today's everyday hero is a longtime friend who could be one of the funniest people I know. He's a remarkable athlete who competes at any sport that is in front of him. He is an optimist to his core, always looking for ways to help his friends and family. His presence alone is medicine. He is a man of faith, a middle school special ed teacher, and a coach. But if you asked him what he does or who he is, he would answer with one word: Father. And he is a great one indeed, and a man that I have always looked up to since high school to admire after. My dear friend, Avant.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Nice to have you back on.
Thanks for having me.
Second time a charm.
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
It's almost like I start every interview this way.
Yeah, I love
it's
it.
it's a third interview that I've interviewed two times, but honestly, this is what it's all about, right? Or
Yep.
chasing our dreams, or doing things out of our comfort zone, and sometimes it doesn't go as you planned the first time around. So I'm fortunate that you came back over and that we get to do a round two. And I know it's going to be even better than the first one as well. So
Any excuse to hang out with you is good in my book. So I'm happy to be here.
yeah, man, I appreciate it. So jumping into it, obviously the show is called Moments of Aha. And what that means to us is moments of aha are those moments of awakening. It's those moments where you have this epiphany, where something just wakes you up, an insight that you might have not had before. But as soon as you have this moment of aha, your life completely transforms moving forward. And we can have it in a brief moment, or it can be a process and multiple moments. Tell me a little bit about a few of your moments of aha.
For sure. I would kind of summarize my life to four big moments of aha. I go through my life and I feel like I've experienced a lot of them, but I can kind of narrow them down to four main aha moments that kind of changed my life. The first one, of course, was the birth of my son.
Mm.
I have he's 13 years old now. She's kind of weird saying that.
Yeah.
Almost 14. But I had him when I was 17 years old. And so that was the first moment where I was, kind of like, aha, like, whoa, life, this is life changing. And it brought me to a sense of new responsibility, to kind of owning up to the things that you've done in your life to kind of put you where you're at now. And just giving me a new purpose, purpose to raise this young, infant child who is going to idolize me and look up to me and have me set the example. So that would be definitely be my first aha moment.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's completely life changing, right? Grayson, he's 2.5 now, and I don't even know what it's like to have a teenager. Uh, but I can imagine
You'll get
time just flies by
Oh yeah.
in those situations. What is one thing? So I have a superpower for you, and I actually have three of them picked out for you. One of them is owning your reality. And there's actually two stories that align with owning your reality when I think about Avant Gates. And the first one is being a father.
Mhm.
That's why, I describe you, one word to describe Avant, father.
Yeah.
You've been that way since you were 17 years old. Not only that, but a single father, which has its own challenges. At 17 years old, you decided to take accountability and raise AJ, and you've done an amazing job. He's with you everywhere you go. The relationship is so admirable. Like, I love your relationship
I
because not
appreciate it.
only are you guys best friends, but the love and respect that you two have for each other is something that I also hope to emulate in Grayson. So, what did it take inside of you to take that extreme accountability at 17 years old in high school, trying to figure out what you're going to do the rest of your life, and then now you're a father?
Yeah. So it came fast. I mean, as you would assume, it wasn't planned. I mean, I'm 17 years old. I was dating a girl at the time, and we she told me that she was pregnant and we were gonna have a kid, and when I had to tell my mom, that was probably one of the hardest things I've had to do.
Mm,
17 years old, I didn't know how to tell her. I didn't know how to announce it to her. And I honestly, when I told her, I broke down because I was scared. I was scared that she was gonna be disappointed. I was scared that she was going to um, you say, "Get out my house." But that the reply to what after telling her was so heartwarming and loving.
mm,
I mean, she just hugged me and said, "It's okay, Mijo. We're gonna take care of it. We'll fight through it. You're a fighter. You've always made good decisions in your life, and I'm not gonna question any decision." So just having that love and support from my mother from day one, and my father, of course, and my father telling me to, it's time to man up. It's time to be responsible for, life. I've done it, and um, I had aspirations at the time to play college football and to keep playing, but my dad kind of put in perspective like, you made this choice, you're gonna own up to it, and you're gonna take care of your son. And I appreciate and value that so much because he instilled that in me from an early age that if you make a mistake, you're gonna man up to it.
mm.
And that was one time where I'm like, yes, I will. I definitely have to. So
Yeah.
it was life changing for sure.
Oh man, I love that. Just another way of saying, own your reality or extreme ownership
Yeah,
is just manning up.
yeah,
And in today's world, that term doesn't get thrown out there
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
It used to be, and it could be, woman up, man up, doesn't
Exactly.
matter.
Yeah,
It's stepping up to the challenge and not being
for sure,
fearful of it. It's
for sure.
it's stepping up to the plate, right? And just today's world, it's not to step up to things. It's kind of to be a little bit softer towards challenges.
Yeah.
What developed that into you? From was it something at an early age that you decided to do hard things and accept challenges and not kind of shy away from them? Where did
Yeah.
you learn that from? Is it from your parents? Is it from sports?
I would say it would be, a little bit of my parents pushing me to do my best, but more of just being, one of seven siblings and kind
Mm.
of just being competitive to where I never wanted to be the loser of anything. And as you can tell, I mean, we played plenty of games. We just finished playing ping pong.
I thought I knew you were going to bring this up. We
It
we just
doesn't
got
matter.
done
Don't worry.
playing ping pong. You just slid that one in here.
Yeah, I had to
Yeah,
sneak that
you
one in
just beat
there.
me at ping pong at my own house, so I'm still a little sore from
This
it.
is the
But
main reason I came back because he beat me the first round. But
but yeah, competitiveness is such a healthy thing,
it
right?
is, it
So
is. And
yeah.
so growing up with seven siblings, my older sister, she was always great in basketball and she always pushed me to be better. My older brother, he wasn't as athletic, but he was tough. And
Mm,
he kind of pushed me around and made me tough. And my little brother, he was also athletic. And so we would just compete. And that's one thing that kept our family close, is we just love competing with each other. We would bag on each other, to kind of make each other rough skinned.
mm.
But being with six of my siblings, I loved and adore all of them, and I think they made me tough. They made me like, you're gonna man up, you're gonna take responsibility, and it's something I try to instill in my son and my younger siblings who are still, young. They're 19, 16 years old now.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Before I move on with some of the other superpowers and going into owning your reality a little bit more, because I have another story that comes to mind with that. You said that there was four events that actually gave you that moment of aha. So AJ being born is one of them, being a father.
yes.
What were the other ones?
So the second one I would have to say is my mother. She passed when I was 24 years old.
Mm,
And that was a huge event for me. She'd helped raise my son. As you said, I am a single father. Me and my girlfriend at the time, we'd separated. We were young. She wanted to do her things, and I kind of owning up to being a parent. She wasn't ready to kind of do that responsibility yet. So yeah, living at home, I had a son, and I also attended college. So my mom and my dad helped me out tremendously. My mom was kind of like a stay-at-home mom, so she was able to stay home and wake AJ up, feed him while I was at school, take him to daycare, take him to preschool, um, bathe him. I mean, and then when I would come home from school, I had to go to work, a couple hours later. So I always give my mom so much credit because there's no way I can be where I'm at in life without the help of my mom and my dad and all
Yeah.
my siblings because they were all there to help me. And that's why the term single father doesn't really do me justice because yes, I'm raising my son and I'm his father, but I don't do it just single handedly. I have a lot of people who put their hands in,
Mm.
friends, family, siblings, mothers, grandparents, friends like you, even just bringing him around my friends and seeing great examples of people. That's raised my son, and I've talked about community before, and there's no way I could do it by myself. It takes a community to raise a kid.
Mm.
But yeah, going back to my mom, that changed my life because she passed suddenly. She fell asleep and then she didn't wake up.
Mm.
So it was kind of like a sudden thing and it hit my family hard. And it kind of gave me that like aha moment to where I needed to like be responsible for not just me, but my son, my siblings. I had at the time my brothers were 11 and 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so they were young. And so a lot of that weight kind of fell upon me and my older siblings to kind of take care of them. And we did. My brother lived with me for many years until he went off to college. And my younger brother lives with my sister now. But her passing just kind of made me realize that life is never guaranteed. We can fall asleep and not wake up. And I think so many people take that for granted that they're just going to go to sleep and everything's going to be better when they wake up. But you have to appreciate and value every single second we're given this earth. And I think that is one way to do it is through death.
Mm.
And I talked about the birth of my son being, a big aha moment. But I think between birth and death, that's one way to kind of calibrate our sense of living, our sense of time here on earth.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely my mom passing was one thing that kind of made me realize you have to appreciate every second you're given with the people you love.
Um, you know, that just gave me just tons of goosebumps over my body, and it resonates so deeply with me. One, because I experienced the birth of my son, and my experience when I met Grayson was an overwhelming, I miss you. I've known you my whole life,
Mm,
and finally we get to meet. And it was so weird. It was just a weird feeling. It wasn't a first meeting or a first greeting.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
just, I've known that I wanted to be a father since I was 6, 7 years old.
yeah.
That's one
Same,
thing I've known, right?
same.
And it was just like, man, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you.
Yeah,
And just that new life in your hands, so fresh, so raw, so fragile, and so innocent. It's so beautiful. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, and this is something that we share as well, is death
yeah,
teaches us some of the best lessons in life if we're willing to open our hearts up, our eyes, and our ears up to what it's trying to tell us.
yeah,
We all do it.
yeah,
And, my eyes were shut towards it up until a mutual friend of ours. My moment of aha is, when Michael Alexander passed away.
yeah.
And it was the same thing. It was just overnight. And I
Mhm.
know it's not, a parent, but it was one of our good friends that, someone that wasn't sick,
Yeah,
someone that wasn't into any trouble, wasn't, it was just overnight. And he was so full of life, so much vitality, made everyone around him better. One of those really good, just good human beings. And, that was the moment that woke me up. And so that bridge from what life offers and what death offers is some of the most valuable lessons.
yeah. Oh, you hit it on the head with the nail. I think that that's another one of my aha moments was Mike passing. I think it woke a community up. I
Mm.
mean, Mike was so lively and he was so energetic, and And any room he entered, he would bring life and smiles and laughs, and it was he was just a breath of fresh air to be around. I mean, we've hung out plenty of times with Mike, and there was never a dull moment. I
Yeah.
mean, whether it's us playing football together and him, talking smack and just and bossing people and let him know that he's better than them, or even if we're just watching TV or playing ping pong or whatever it is, he was just so competitive and so full of life, but also at the same time so loving. And that's one thing that kind of woke me up because I wanted to figure out with my life after he passed, like, what is your purpose? I seen him um, experience life and then pass, and then so many people had the same story for him, and it was just like he was full of life, full of energy. He always made people smile, and he always cared about people, and it made me evaluate my life to what do you want to be known for?
Mm.
Like, what is your purpose in life? And I've talked about having a purpose-driven life, and I'm not here to please everyone, but I want to leave a lasting impact on people. And if I do pass, I want people to see the way I live and that their life can change if they, try to better themselves. And that's what I'm here for. I'm trying to better myself to be a better.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think Mike passing did a lot for me. And I
Yeah.
think it's, as well for you. I know you guys were a lot closer. You guys, he would call you his brother
Mm.
without a doubt. But every time I seen Mike and I was always close to him, he'd always call me big bro. And I think I didn't do my job. And some of that kind of puts me um, at a responsibility to make sure that those people around me are taken care of and to check on people.
Mm.
I think you do a great job of kind of sending random texts like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I think that just shows that you care, and I think that's important for people to do. I love random texts from people who I haven't seen in a while, or even random call, just saying, "Hey, how's everything going? How's your son?
Mm.
Do you need help with anything? Like, how are you feeling emotionally?" And I think you're a great example of checking in on people and making sure they feel good. So
Well, thank
appreciate
you. I appreciate that, and that's actually a lesson that I learned um, through that experience because the the weekend before the last time I saw him, I worked with him every day,
it. Mhm.
and that week I saw him, and I just felt something, and I was just like, I think there's something going on with my friend.
Yeah,
I'll talk to him about it later. I'll
yeah.
ask him about it later.
Oh, yeah.
And he's my friend.
Yeah.
And we have an obligation and a duty with our friends, and no way do I hold any guilt or
Mhm.
anything like that.
Yeah,
We just it's natural for us to think back to the moments that we had with people, our last moments with
exactly.
them, last thoughts, last emotions uh, when you are around somebody. Um, but it taught me to make sure you reach out to the people that you love, people
Mhm.
that you care about, random strangers. A smile goes a long way.
Oh, for sure.
How are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah,
You want to talk about it?
yeah.
It goes a long way. And he taught me that. And another big thing that he taught me as well, a question that I asked to myself after his transition was, if I switch places with Michael, would I be satisfied with my legacy, with the life that I lived, who I was? And it wasn't saying that I didn't live a bad life. I lived a really good life. I was happy.
Yeah,
I was very playful. I traveled around the world. I had my own home. I was married. I had all these beautiful things, but I wasn't living up to my potential and I was almost sleepwalking. And it just instantly woke me up to, what is my legacy? And so I'm curious, Avant, like, you did say that, you want to make sure that you help other people grow and be better. But what is your legacy? What would you say?
my legacy for me, being a father, and I know that lasts for me. I mean, you've raised a kid for about 18 years, per se, and then you kind of set him off to be part of the world. And so, with me being, I only have one kid now. I want to make sure I equip my son with all the tools necessary. And I tell them, you have a tool belt when you walk around. Do you have that? Do you have everything you need to go into this world and to help people with everything you have on your tool belt? Do you have passion? Do you have complacency? Do you have the things you need necessary to help people around you? And that's why I try to be that example. Anytime a friend's moving, I try to help them move. Uh, when I when I'm in my feelings, I try to let him see those and experience those. I'm happy, I'm sad, I need a break. When I'm building things, I try to have him help me. I think it's my responsibility to help him be a citizen in this world and bring something to it.
Mm,
And my legacy isn't going to be just through AJ's success. It's through how I help him, how I help others as a teacher. I see kids every day. I try to preach to them, good habits of being a human being, being responsible, turning your assignments on time, like little things. And so I think my legacy it's many aspects are kind of going into it, but it's still something that I'm trying to figure out. And I pray every night that God gives me more time to make my legacy.
mm,
And I'm thankful for the time He has given me, and hopefully through time, I know exactly what I'm here for, and I know exactly my purpose. But until then, I'm going to continue to try to be the best man I can be every day on earth,
mm.
and whether that's just by smiling at people, like you said, helping people out, helping them with their homework, or just being a dad simply, and trying to be the best dad I can be.
Yeah.
Try to be the best brother I can be. Try to be the best father. The best cousin, best friend. I think if I do those things right in life, then what happens after is for everyone else to decide. But I just want to do what I can do while I'm here to kind of build that legacy.
Yeah, I love that more than you know, and I can definitely align with it as well. Um, because when you use the word father, it doesn't just apply with being a father.
Yeah,
Um, you have to embody what a father is,
yeah,
and you have to live by example, and you emulate that Avant, and you have so much impact, influence, and value to everyone that you're ever around.
I
I
appreciate it.
mean, you literally light the room up when you walk in. You raise the vibration, all the above, and
Appreciate it.
everybody knows that.
Yeah,
Everybody.
that's awesome to hear. I appreciate it.
Um, but we. I don't know about you, but I have an amazing parent. My
Oh yeah.
parents. My
Oh,
parents are amazing. I love
love
them
them.
so much, and but my dad, growing up, he would do as I say, not as I do, and there was a lot of that.
Yeah,
And when we're children, we actually don't learn that way. We learn by visual teaching a lot of the time.
yeah,
And it was so important to me when I thought about before I even had Grayson, I was like, thinking about my legacy, like what do I want to do? And I was like, well, I want to be a father and I want to make sure that I embody what that means. I want to live by example. It's so funny. It was just like one day it hit me. I've heard this my whole life, lead by example.
yeah.
And you literally have to be it. You're not performing in any other way except you embody being the change you wish to see in the world, right? And so if you can embody how you would want to raise your children and you align with that constantly when you're with them or away from them, that is just your legacy. All of a sudden, you have influence on your friends. You have influence on the community. You have influence as a teacher with all the kids you're around. And you are all of a sudden a father behind closed doors and for everybody else to see as well. And it's not just on and off.
Yeah.
It is your legacy. And so I really love that is your legacy, Avant. And something else that speaks to me when I think about superpowers with you and an internal superpower is spirituality. And you've been a man of God ever since I've known you, and you live that example through AJ. Tell me about your relationship with God and how has that influenced your life to become who you are today?
I started going to church when I well, I'll take that back. My mom would bring us to church when we were young, but it was only for Easter, Christmas, and maybe when someone was getting baptized. But I
Yeah.
mean, I always had a background of God in my life. I always knew there was a God. I always knew that, I believed in him, but I didn't really practice anything. I didn't, meditate. I didn't pray regularly. But as I got older, and especially after having my son, I started to become a lot closer and having a relationship with God. And one person who really brought that was at the time I broke up with AJ's mom, and then I started dating a girl, and her mom was really religious, and so she would wake me up, and we would go to church every Sunday, and so she kind of introduced a different relationship with God with me, that I never experienced, and I kind of fell in love and had my own relationship with God through that.
Mm,
And so that was one thing that I kind of embedded in AJ as a young age. Like we wake up on Sundays, we go to church, we pray every night, and I think doing that it kind of set me straight. By trying to set this example for my son, it set me straight as well. And I appreciate that woman. Her name is Millie so much because it introduced me to a life lasting, practice of praying, of love, of having a relationship with higher power. And uh, I knew immediately I wanted to embed that in my son. And so by going to church a lot, I kind of fell into I want to put my son into a religious private school. And at the time, I was working a regular job. I wasn't a teacher, but I kind of had this goal and ambition. Like I want to put him through a religious private school because I know how important those early years are. And we've talked about it. You have to instill those things in early in a kid's life so that they can always refer back to it. That's
mm,
like embedded them. And I always like to tell parents and teachers, I think of children almost like clay. When they're young, they're super rubbery. You can move them around, you can mold them to what you want to be. But as they get older, that clay time tends to harden.
mm,
And so when they're in middle school and high school, they're not as easy to be influenced and stretched the way you want. So if when they're young, you put that God in the center of that clay and you allow them to mold around that, it kind of helps them grow into who they want to be and a lot of who I want them to be. And so was able. I was very fortunate. I knew the principal there at the school that I went to church at. So I ended up coaching football, volleyball, and basketball there. And since I did that, he was able to give me discount tuition,
mm.
and I was able to put my son through private school education, that was something I'd never imagined at the time, all the way up to fifth grade.
Mm.
So I was
Wow.
definitely blessed to go through that. And looking back now, I mean, AJ is he's so smart. I mean, he is so well scripted on the Bible and just things of God that there's times where he teaches me
Mm,
things that and stories that I don't know. So I appreciate that the people who helped me, put him in that spot and getting him through that and allowing me to be that core of that faith that I was able to embed in him throughout his life.
mm.
You know.
I'm curious. This might be foreign to a lot of people, um, but what does it look like to have an intimate relationship with the higher power?
Ooh, so it could look a lot of ways. So for me, a lot of people preach religion differently, but I think that it's my relationship. I have an intimate relationship with God, and so every night, me and my son pray together. We pray in the morning, um, and when we were driving to school, we're not driving to school. We'd pray every morning on the way to school. We would pray at dinner time. We pray at lunchtime. And for me, it's just being able to sit down and talk to someone in higher power who's in more control of your life than you are, and just having a relationship to where you can talk to them and you can hear them talk back.
Mm,
They might not talk back to you in the sense of Avant, go vacuum downstairs, but it's like God speaks to me in ways that sometimes I don't want to listen. I try to close my ears to it, but I can still hear him.
mm,
And so I like to just think of it as an intimate relationship with God, to where you know what you're supposed to do and you know what He expects of you. And that's one thing I try to um, embody in my son. I think it's all about the relationship. It's hard for kids nowadays to want to grow up in the church, and I think you see a lot more kids growing out of their religion,
mhm,
but I think as long as you have a relationship with your God, just a one-to-one relationship. And one thing I preach to AJ is one day I'm not going to be here to pray with you. I pray with him every night, but one day I'm not going to be here to pray with you. And I hope and pray that you still talk to God, because that's your guys' relationship, and
mm,
that's a relationship that God doesn't want you to lose.
yeah.
And so we do that every night. One thing we also try to do to keep our faith strong and not just our faith, but our emotion, um, and our mental awareness is throughout this month of November, we've been, while we've been going to bed, we've been saying three things that we're grateful for.
Mm,
one thing we could have done better today, and then one thing we can forgive ourselves with, or we want God to forgive us. And
Mm,
so I like to do that kind of, and I think that's just a thing we're doing for November. I like to kind of throw random, traditions in every month to kind of keep things fresh. Because if you practice something habitually, it kind of becomes repetitive. You kind of keep saying the same things. And I want him to just be refreshed and just have a new way of thinking, and we refresh that every month. So
yeah,
that's one thing that, has been helping us. And it's been gratifying for us to kind of, oh, we were thankful for this, this, and this. And every day it's something different. I mean,
yeah,
there's so many things, but you have to narrow it down to those three things specific for that day. So, I mean, it's been great for us.
yeah. No, that's so cool. And I've done that practice, but it's funny. It wasn't about spirituality. I think so. I wouldn't call myself religious anymore. I grew up Christian.
Yeah.
I am spiritual, but I've actually been re-coming to the terms of even what religion is, because religion would be a set of values or morals or laws that you live by.
Yeah.
And actually, I do live by that. So I have a religion, but I wouldn't know what to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have my own unique definition of spirituality because, when I'm trying to speak to an audience, right, I want to speak to as many people as I can.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people combine religion and spirituality as if I ask about spirituality, it means religion, religion means spirituality. And I don't necessarily think that, right? And just
Yeah.
because you're religious doesn't mean that you're spiritual. Because you might just be following some rules without the intimate connection and relationship, like you
Exactly.
said. And so, my definition of spirituality would be a deep, intimate relationship with yourself that brings out purpose and passion towards something bigger than yourself. And, in that, I would say that my early years was the foundation of personal development for me,
Yeah.
and that it taught me how to talk to myself and talk to the higher part of myself and the relationship with God, the divine,
Yeah.
the higher power. And it taught me that. And I remember laying in bed, I used to pray every night. I would pray for 15 minutes every night when I was little.
Yeah.
And because there's something about me where it was just like, I always started with what I'm thankful for. God, thank you for my bed. Thank you for my toys. Thank you for my mom, my dad, my sister, both my sisters,
Mhm.
my uncle, my aunt. Like, I start thinking about my friends. And then it's just like, if I forget someone, I feel bad. So I have to go back to them. And I'm just like going around and trying to thank everyone I could. And then I'd start asking for God to fill me up with things and
Yeah.
blessings and favor and
That's
guidance and direction, all these things. And it would take me forever to pray, but usually I'd fall asleep before I'm even done with prayer.
yeah.
Right.
No, yeah. I totally been there.
But when I reflect on it now, I realize that I developed a gratitude practice at a really young age.
Mhm.
And so now I do all these different type of practices. And the one that you just said is such a valuable one. And I hope that people are taking notes. What are three things that you're grateful for in your day? What's one thing that you could have done differently? And what's one thing you can let go of that you need to forgive yourself for, or that you need to let go to God,
Exactly.
something
Higher
bigger
power.
than
Yeah.
yourself, because sometimes we think that we need to do all on our own.
Yeah.
But that surrender is actually a huge foundation of you don't need to carry your burdens.
Yeah.
Take the weight down
And
and set it
sometimes
down.
it's hard for us to forgive ourselves. Like we think, oh man, why did I do this? Why did I let my anger control me? But you have to just forget it. All right,
Mm,
just say tomorrow I'm gonna do better. And that's one thing as a parent I work on every day. And raising AJ, he's a teenager, and it's a lot harder now. I tell myself that I cannot let AJ control me because if he sees my anger, he knows he can control me.
mm,
And so there's times where I try to hide my anger and I try to remain calm. I take my breaths. And I'm like, when he knows you're mad, he can control you. And I think that goes for anyone. If the people you allow to anger you, you also allow to control you. And they
mm,
have this sense of, oh, I know how to press his buttons. And so that's one thing I try to control with AJ. It's like, calm down, keep your breath. What is the most practical thing you can do here to put him to where you want to be and align him to what's right? And we've been going through practices, and that nightly routine is probably one of our best ones so far.
mm. I
Because
love it, man.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm gonna steal that one from you.
do it,
So,
please.
and especially that you say that you kind of are switching them up over time. I want to hear
Yeah,
about your other ones too,
yeah,
when you start switching them up and transitioning.
I
But
will for sure. That's good.
so you, I have so many other questions, but I actually really want to go back to your fourth moment of aha, because we talked about three of them. We talked
Mhm.
about the birth of AJ, the passing of your mom, and Michael. And what's that fourth one?
That fourth one, it was actually involves my best friend who actually is he got married. He's expecting his first kid
Mm.
next month, which I'm so excited for. But it was the moment that he told me he was gonna propose to his then girlfriend. And that was like for me, it was just like it kind of threw me off. I mean, and my friend Pierre, a lot of people know him, you know him.
Yeah.
He was born and raised out here. He went to school out here, but then he went out to Florida State University, where his dad lived, and he went to college out there. And so I would go out and visit him kind of randomly. He would come back, and anytime he came back, it was just like, oh, Pierre's in town. And, for me, he's always been a great friend to me. He's always been there for me. So when he came, I wanted to like take him out. Let's go out. Let's go have some drinks. Let's go have some fun. And then I kind of got stuck in a moment to where I was almost like idolizing him too much. I was in relationships with two girls. I mean, with not two girls, but one and at one time and one another time. And throughout the years of him coming back, I would push them to the side and be like, "Oh, nope, Pierre's here. I'm focusing all my time on him." And so, um, and it was kind of normal to me. So when he found this girl, Kelsey, his wife now, he was very committed, and he was like, you know what, I've done, some had my fun in the past. I'm gonna put it all on the table with this girl. I'm gonna try my hardest. I'm gonna be the best man I can be. I'm gonna be faithful, and then whatever happens from there happens. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever, sure, go ahead. That sounds fun." But that's something I had never done at that time. Like I,
Mm.
I had never like fully committed myself to a woman because I've always been so committed to AJ and myself.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and I think that was the most realization for me was because I was my past relationships, I was always so committed to myself. I always wanted to do what I wanted to do. If I wanted to go out and hang out with my friends, that's what I would do. I would tell my girlfriend that. And I just it made me grow up so much. And
Mm.
because he put her first, I would call and be like, "Hey, let's go out It's Saturday. Like, let's go have some drinks." And he's like, "Oh, me and Kelsey have plans. We're gonna go to dinner." I'm like, "Wait, hold on. My phone
Yeah.
must be messed up. Like, well, what did you say? Did you
Who is
say
this?
no?" Exactly. And so him putting me in the back seat was like a aha moment, like, whoa, like you're this is a guy you idolize, and he's telling you you have to love others and accept love because Kelsey loved him so much and they loved being around each other. And that was something that I was missing. I always put myself first. I didn't put my significant other first.
Mm.
And so when he told me we were actually in Cali on the beach and he said he's going to propose to his girlfriend, I was like, "Are you sure?" He was like, "I've never been more sure about anything in my life." And so from that moment, I kind of it let it switch in me to where, this is this guy who you kind of idolize because he just lived full of freedom, would always go out with you. And now he's switching it up to where he is more, loving and accepting love. So for me, it was like, this is where you need to be about. You need to focus on yourself and making yourself a better person and being able to accept love and give love
Mm.
more. And so to this day, I mean, I appreciate Pierre kind of setting me straight with, you know, accepting love and being able to put your, best friends to the side. Not that he just like booted me out the picture. We're still best friends and we still hang out. I still third wheeler dates,
Yeah.
but it was something that I learned that I have to be more accepting of people and learn to accept that love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. You know, it's something that I constantly work on. I'm so quick to give myself to someone else
Mhm.
or give the love, but to receive love is a little bit more vulnerable,
Yeah.
letting someone in into that intimate space,
Yeah.
right? And it's a valuable lesson that you got to learn,
Yeah.
through
It
his
is. It
experience,
is.
from being your boy and, bachelor of the year and,
Yeah.
hanging out and having a great time
Yeah.
to seeing that like when you find that one, you commit to it and you give yourself to it and you
Yeah.
receive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like so in the past, I mean, after AJ's mother, I dated two. They're amazing women. They're great women. And I was so focused on myself that I didn't really see them for the amazing women they were.
Mm,
And so I think experiencing that, seeing my best friend go through that, who when he came into town, I put those women, I put them to the side. I'm like, I'll deal with you later. And seeing Pierre do that with me, like, oh, we can hang out another time. We'll plan something. And it just kind of opened my eyes, and I appreciate it because that's the way a woman should be treated. They
yeah,
shouldn't be, pushed to the side. So
yeah.
it kind of opened my eyes to how to have a true and valuable relationship. And I adore that about him and his wife.
Yeah. So I want to go back to that first superpower of owning your reality. When you're in high school, you had a situation that happened. You
Mhm.
went on a basketball trip out of town and you ended up stealing something,
Mhm.
got kicked out of school, went to a rival school to
Yeah.
finish out your high school career just after winning state in football, projected to win state the year after, which they ended up winning state the year
Mhm.
after. And not only that, fast forward a little bit, a few years later in time, you ended up actually going back to that school and being a teacher at the
Yeah.
school that you got kicked out of. And I can imagine it was such a redemption to, and a reward to get kicked out of somewhere, but come back and kind of resolve the energy that you experienced. Tell me what you had to own and take accountability for in that transitional period.
Yeah, I was young, I was 16, 17 when that happened. And having to leave schools to me was like the biggest thing in my life. I was like crushed.
Mm,
I was leaving all my friends. I was leaving teachers who I loved and adored. And they had written some letters, asking me to stay. I was on a zone variant, so I was zoned for El Dorado, so I wasn't supposed to be going to Vegas. And the principal at the time was just like, you know what, I can't do it. I know you're a highly, valued person in our community at our school, but if I let this happen to you and come back and say, "Oh, just brush that under the rug," um, then everyone's gonna think it's okay.
mm,
And I was like, I'm student council president, I'm in student council, I'm an AB honor roll student, I stay active in sports. And
Three
for me,
sport
yeah,
athlete.
I
Yeah.
was just like, what do you mean? How is this even a question? But it kind of woke me up to, you know what? You're not God's gifts to earth. You can't just do whatever you want. And I got caught stealing like $6 pair of earrings. It was so dumb. But I'm so thankful for that moment, because if I would have went and got caught then, I probably could have done something worse in the future, and it would have been a greater, consequence. And so
$100 earrings,
exactly,
$200
exactly. I've
earrings,
been robbing
yeah.
banks right now,
You'd you'd be notorious for
exactly. So I
it's a
always
snowball effect,
exactly, but it kept
The
going.
momentum keeps moving.
But
Yeah, I doubt that because I know you,
I
but
know, I know. But I always tell my son, you never know. Like
yeah,
it could
absolutely.
one little thing you can get away with, it could lead to, endless possibilities of bad, bad events.
Yeah.
And so I got caught and I went to El Dorado, and it ended up being such a blessing in disguise because I met so many cool people there. I had an amazing coach who was my basketball coach there, who taught me a lot about being a man, being responsible, owning the situation you were in. He knew I wanted to go back to Vegas, but he was like, you're not going to go back. Like, what are you going to do that now that you're here? And then I'm like, you know what? You're right. And so I would work my butt off, in practice. And he made me. I was like one of two seniors on that basketball team. And he was like, these kids are looking up to you. They see you working hard. You're one of the best defenders on the team. You've started every game, and it's because your work ethic. It's not because you're amazing basketball player. It's because you're a hardworking person. And I kind of took that from him into my adult life. Like, I just don't want to be outworked, and I want to make sure people, my son, my family members, my brothers, my cousins, my friends, they see that I'm going to work hard. And, I might not get the best reward, but I will never sell myself short of working hard.
Mhm.
Um, and then, so going back to what you asked, I started teaching at a middle school. And so I taught there for 2 years. And the new principal at Las Vegas High School, she actually was a dean back in the day. So she was a dean when I was, I believe, like a sophomore, freshman. And so she kind of knew me, and she knew I was a good person. And so when she became principal at Las Vegas High School, I would see her because I coached football up there. and she was like, "Hey, I heard you're teaching. When are you gonna come back here?" And for me, I'm like, I wanted to come back, but not anymore. But she was such a good person. She was such an amazing mom, amazing at the time. Before she became a principal, she was an assistant principal. She was such an amazing spirit, just to where she was like, "No, I'm going to offer you this job as a teacher here. If you don't accept it, you're not going to get many offers from me. So you better take it when I offer it." And I was like, "Okay, let me think about it." And it was a couple days later, and I was like, not that the principal I was working for was bad, but I knew she was a great person. I knew I wanted to be at Las Vegas High School, and I knew I could impact a lot of young people who could have, or in the future, could make the same mistake I made. And hopefully, I was there to prevent that. And I just wanted to be that mentor, that father figure at that school. So
Mm.
I gladly accepted, and Miss Proctor she was great to me there. She was an amazing principal, and I'm so glad I made that decision.
Yeah, it almost seems like coming home
Yeah,
in a sense.
exactly,
And
exactly.
something that I hear out of that is one, we've already talked about it, but you lead by example.
Mhm.
Um, and your work ethic is amazing, but your leadership skills is phenomenal, man. That like when I think about when you talk about having to be a father, not only do you have to lead by take ownership of your reality, man up, but you become a leader in that moment,
Yeah,
right? Fatherhood is leadership. When your mom passed away, and then you have two younger siblings, and a lot of that weight went on you. You stepped up to the leadership role. You get kicked out of a school, and you're going to a school that you didn't want to go to at the time, and by your work ethic, by being there and giving it your all, you were leading other
yeah,
kids that, you know, that sports program wasn't as good over there. The neighborhood's not as good over there,
mhm,
unfortunately.
yeah,
And you probably showed them a lot more by being a peer and leading in that space than even a coach could ever, help in that situation.
yeah.
And so, your leadership abilities, is that something that was birthed out of sports? Like what so for me, sports
Yeah,
was my identity
yeah.
up until after college, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Who am I?" And I would consider you a super athlete, and myself, I'll say that too, but
Oh, for
because,
sure.
not only just really competitive and compete at a sport, but a wide variety of sports
Yeah.
from left to right, all the way down. And it doesn't matter. And there's so many internal lessons that we learn in sports. One, what have you learned out of sports through work ethic, discipline, leadership, and like
Mhm.
what are some other things that you've learned? What are the main lessons, would you
So some
say?
of the main lessons, that's a great question. Some of the main lessons I've learned are you have to be very attentive to details.
Mm,
And so one of one of my favorite quotes is from Nick Saban. He says, "See a little, you see a lot. See a lot, you see nothing."
mm,
And that just means that if you focus on the little things, it's gonna help you build those big things. But once you start focusing on those big things, you lose mindset of those attention to the small details. And so if you continue to focus on those small details, those big things will come. And so for me, the leadership was just always just focusing on those small details. I would always work on footwork. I was working on my conditioning. I was always working on something small to help me throughout every sport I played. Like you said, I mean, you're an amazing athlete as well. But I played football, I played basketball, I played volleyball, and every sport I played, there was something that would translate into the next sport.
mhm,
And so with volleyball, I mean, my quick twitch muscles from jumping, that helped me with basketball. With football, my agility that helped me for basketball as well. Defensive sliding, and so for me, I always wanted to ingrain focusing on the little details because in the large scheme of life, if you focus on one day at a time, you focus on 1 hour at a time, 1 minute, are you maximizing your time? Period.
mm,
If you focus on that, then in the large scheme of life, things are going to come together.
mm.
And so that's what one thing I took from sports is kind of just focusing on those little things, and what will come will come. There's things we can't control, but if you work hard and work on those little things, great things will come.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it sounds like you really maximize and almost lengthen your life when you're able to expand those moments,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Rather than, let them slip by.
Yeah.
And
And I think
I can't
savoring
wait
them.
until the end of the week. But like,
Yeah,
what are you doing every moment up until the end of the week
exactly.
for your weekend?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you savor those moments, savor the little moments, like savoring here right now. Like I'm
Mhm.
being here in the moment. Like I'm enjoying this conversation with you. Just savor it because you're not going to be able to get many opportunities that you truly enjoy, or even those sad moments. You're not going to always be sad,
Mm.
but just live in that moment, savor it, and remember what it feels like, and then you could always refer back to it and refer back to the emotions and the joy, the pain, and those can
Mm.
help you in future situations.
Yeah.
One thing that I've learned is like people are always going to love you for your strengths, but they're always going to be able to relate to you through your weaknesses.
Mm.
And like you said, going through deaths, I realize people have also lost their mothers or lost their fathers, and I was able to relate with people were able to relate with me because they lost their parents, and I was able to talk with them, and they talked to me about how they got through it. And I've had close friends. Rod Ford being one of our great friends. He lost his mom uh, shortly after I lost my mom, and it wasn't that I knew exactly how to handle it. Like I knew the step by step how to get through it, but I was able to be there for him. And I knew when I lost my mom, I appreciated the people that were there for me.
Mm.
Like you were one of them.
Mm.
Rod was one of them. All my friends and family, they were there for me, and I just kind of take that, and I'm like, I go through my experiences so I can share that empathy with others in the
Mm.
future.
Yeah, and that goes back to a little bit in sports, right? In conditioning, in the pain that you experience when you're running until you're gonna throw up,
Yeah.
until you don't want anymore, until you're crying
Hmm.
almost. There's something about the camaraderie of experiencing pain with a brother or with a sister or a
Yeah.
family member
Oh yeah.
that really brings an intimate relationship in that space.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important that that your brothers are there for you, and that it's important that you can be there for those other people as well. Be there for them, and sometimes you don't have to talk. You can just be there. Just being present, being let them cry on the shoulder, or just let them talk. You don't have to have the perfect response. You don't have to say the right thing. Sometimes saying nothing is saying the right thing. Just
Mm,
being there.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and speaking of savoring the moment, usually I like to do like 40 minutes, and I've already decided I'm just gonna keep going. So yeah, man, because you have so much value and again influence on whoever's listening to this, right? And even myself, I'm getting so much from you right now, so I appreciate it. And
My pleasure.
yeah, and so I'm curious, you are a middle school and you were a high school special ed teacher. Such a specific field to get into.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's very challenging at times. What drew you into getting into that space, and what have you learned about being a special ed teacher?
Yeah, so going into college, I had no idea what I wanted to be. I was just going, taking my prereqs. But one of my best friends, David Jagir, his dad, I had actually lived with David and his family for about 6 months through high school. My parents moved like way north, and I wanted to continue to go to Vegas. So I lived with David Jagir and his father and his family, and living there. I mean, I love their routine. I love their family. I love their family dynamic. I learned so much. And his David's mom was a counselor at the time at an elementary, and his dad was and he still is a teacher. He's actually finishing off his final year this year,
Mm,
and that's one of the reasons I went back to the middle school is to teach with them.
mm,
But he kind of showed me like you have such a flexibility in your schedule. Being a teacher, you're able to parent. He was always involved in all his kids extracurricular activities and their education, and not only that, he impacted others. He was actually my JV coach when I played JV basketball, and I was living with him at the time. So we would go home after practice, we would have dinner, and he would just like, "Hey, you want to go shoot some hoops?" And we would go back to the gym, shoot some hoops. And so I love the flexibility of being a teacher. But as far as special education, there were many things that kind of brought out like why I wanted to be a special education teacher. And one of them was because camp I went to, Camp Firefly. I went there because it was a camp that a couple of my friends were doing, and it was for kids who were, going through cancer or who had their parents had died of cancer, or they were survivors of cancer. And through that camp, I met some students who had special disabilities. Um, one of the kids' name I remember vividly, his name is Spidey, and he had cerebral palsy, and he was only about 12 years old, maybe younger. But he was such a joy to be around. He was always laughing, always smiling. He couldn't really speak verbally that often, but you can see what he was talking about through his expressions and his
Mm,
life. And so I that was one thing that drew me in. Another thing was just the interactions I had through student council in high school. We would do a lot of events with the special needs students, and I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed like working with those people, and I think as a parent, it helped me out because it taught me a lot about patience. It taught me a lot about empathy. It taught me a lot about just being there for people without having to communicate like we talked about. So yeah,
mm,
I mean, looking back, it was such a blessing for me because like I just kind of like, okay, let's try special ed. And I took a few classes at UNLV, and I did some observations, and I was like, okay, I can do this. I love
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Mm, how cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really rewarding. And, you've told me before that you've brought AJ
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
some of your students, and it
Yep.
kind of woke him up into being appreciative of his abilities that,
Yeah.
all of us take for granted. I
Exactly.
mean, we take for granted these hands
Yeah.
and our feet that get us around and just our mind that thinks.
Hmm.
And it's
It's
just because
humbling.
the only thing we've ever known. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm sure that that's amazing for AJ to be
Yeah,
around that.
yeah, and I think that he's grown a lot from it because now when we go places and he sees a person with disabilities or acquire special needs, he has a lot more patience and empathy. He's opening doors. He's saying hi. He's giving a fist bumps.
Mm,
It's because me and my friend Rod and his wife Danielle, they work with autism in the autism classroom for years, and we've always interacted with those kids, and just seeing the joy on their faces is such an awesome feeling. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So the third superpower that I have for you is attitude. And how I would define attitude is the energy that you project in any given situation. So how you show up in life is your attitude. And you're always laughing, you're always playing, you're always optimistic and confident. Um, Tell me about the importance of attitude, one. And then two is that I'm sure that there's individuals out there that aren't confident, aren't playful, they're kind of feeling down or take life a little too seriously and having trouble with having one of those positive attitudes. How would they start to develop that?
Great question. So, one of my favorite sayings is the opposite of depression isn't happiness, but it's vitality. And that's from Solomon. And one thing I've learned, because I've gone through depression times, losing my mom, losing friends, going through lonely moments, I had to deal with some hard times, and I had to find ways to kind of help me, balance, my great moments and my bad moments. And, a lot of those came through like meditation, yoga, kind of breathing techniques, just kind of sitting and being present in the moment. But my attitude comes from just being aware, taking every single second, taking every single moment and moving forward from there. I don't try to look back too far because, that's the past. I don't try to look forward because I can't control what's going to happen in the future. But a lot of my attitude comes from just living in that moment, being present, and kind of going from there.
Mm,
And then to address your second question, which is, how can you help people with confidence? One thing that I say helps me, like I've said, is just being present and taking those breaths. Some people they think like, oh, I have to be this way, I have to be this way. But I've gone, plenty places, and I've seen confidence spill out the room from a kid who's like could be considered overweight or not good looking, and they exuberate confidence just because their attitude and being present within themselves.
mm,
If you cannot love yourself, you can't expect anyone else to love you, and
mm,
that's one way I try to live. I love who I am. I know I have faults, but at the same time, I love the growth I've gone through. I love, my future possibilities. I love my physical health, my mental health, and I try to just be happy with who I am. And once you start doing that, other people start feeding off of that energy and they could see, he loves living life. He loves being a part of something better than himself. And I think that attracts
Mm,
others. I think you're a great example. People are just attracted to you because you have such a great energy, such a great vibe. I can tell just by seeing you from a distance that he enjoys who he is.
mm,
I think and that goes for a lot of people. If you enjoy who you are and enjoy the moment you're in, and you're not like just stuck on your phone, and that's something
mm,
I'm working on. But if you're not just stuck, doing other things and just being in that moment and loving yourself, I think that is like the first step to getting the confidence you need to, attack other obstacles, talking to that girl or making new friends. I think just loving yourself is like the most important thing.
mm. Yeah, I love that, man. I heard a couple things in that. So, um, one is self-awareness,
Yeah.
right? Being
And you
present.
talked about
Yeah.
self-talk earlier, and that's huge. That's one thing I talked to AJ about. Sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
go ahead.
he
Yeah.
said, I mean, I always tell him, you have to motivate yourself. There's times where he's like, I can't do this. We're working out. He's like, I'm like, but if you change the way you talk to yourself, you change your whole mindset. You should talk to yourself the way you want someone else talking to you.
Mm,
Yeah, so if I'm like trying to pump you up to, lift this weight or do this, I'm gonna speak with confidence. I'm gonna be like reassuring, hey, you can do this, Dugan. You need to also speak to yourself that way. You need
mm,
to say, Avant, take a step back. You can do this. You have the ability. And I think self-talk is a great tool, to get
mm.
you through a lot of tough moments.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I call it, the inner hero,
Oh
right? And
yeah.
that's who I like to talk to is the inner hero because sometimes it's hard to identify with Jonathan when
Mhm,
he's in that place of depression
mhm.
or anxiety or insecure about something. It's hard to relate to Jonathan when I'm in that space. So I call it the inner hero. And so that part of Jonathan, that Jonathan is the hero, right? So he is confident. He
Yeah.
is knowing what the answer is. And he is my best friend. And, it's so funny how most people are so willing to pump their friends up or the
Exactly.
people around them, but their self talk is so toxic
So
with
negative.
themselves.
Yeah.
And so if they're not speaking to themselves healthy or lovingly, how can you be confident? And so,
Exactly.
but I hear what you talk about is one is self awareness. So being aware and confident in who you are.
Mhm.
So who are you? And I think a lot of people don't understand who they are. They're looking at other people, comparing how they want to be, what they don't have, and all these things. Especially in our society, it's always telling us what we need to have
Exactly.
more, 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 right?
Yeah.
But so self awareness, knowing who we are, and accepting, loving who we are, that self love, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
in that, there's a key point in that is that there's a string that aligns all of it, and that's the self talk. How do you speak to yourself? How do you encourage yourself? How do you uplift yourself when you are feeling down and discouraged?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, those moments are tough because we have little things that are happening for us that we're just like, oh man, my friend has this. He has a wife. He has all these nice cars, but it's just like, what do you have? You could talk about yourself and the things you have more than you realize. I have a great life. I have good health. I have a shower. I could take clean showers. I have a loving family. I have great siblings. I
Mm.
have great friends. I have a nice bed to sleep in, little things. And if you start naming off these little things in retrospect, these things don't look so bad anymore.
Yeah. And a key point as well is you have really healthy habits. And so by having your healthy habits,
Mhm.
having your healthy routine, you're going to love yourself more because if you're doing the things that are destructive and toxic towards yourself, it's a lot harder to like yourself when you're consistently getting in your own way, consistently
Yeah,
going against the grain
yeah,
that is supposed to be in your flow state.
yeah. And I
So,
think people get into the moment where they're like, "Oh, I went out, I had some drinks, I have a hangover. I'm so disappointed in myself." But it's like you can bounce back from that moment. You don't have to. Oh, now I'm gonna do it again and again. It's okay to catch yourself in those bad moments because I've caught myself plenty of times in those moments. But as long as you have the tools, when we talked about the tool belt, you
mm,
have the tools to kind of realign and set yourself forward. You're
mm,
like, okay, now I need to go work out, relieve some of the stress. I need to get some rest. I need to eat healthy. Kind of realign yourself to where you want to be. I think that's so important when you're dealing with those, bad thoughts or toxic traits.
yeah, definitely. If you were going to choose an internal superpower for yourself, what would it be?
I've talked about, having patience, but I would I would want to have more patience. That would be my
Yeah.
hero. Raising a 13-year-old is tough. Raising kids are tough, and I'm sure you see it. Um, but I think I have a good amount of patience, but I would also want to have more patience
Mm,
and be able to, relate with people more and just be able to. I think when you have patience, you can live in moments more.
mm,
You're not so anxious to go to work, or like you said, you like I have to go to work, but I want to live in this moment. Like I'm patient, and you don't have to worry about like, oh, being late. Oh, you just kind of live in that moment. Time will come, and you're aware of where you're at. So I think my superhero, if I could, my inner hero trait would be more patience.
I love it. Yeah. So, what are some tools that you use when we talk about self awareness? What are some tools that you have used to, um, develop a little bit more self awareness in your life? I know that something that you've picked up recently is journaling is something that's really spoken to you.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your
So
tools.
yeah, journaling has been huge for me. During the past summer, this past summer, I picked up journaling because I read a book and they talked about, getting all these thoughts out of your head. There were moments at night where I couldn't sleep. I was just like, I was thinking what I was going to do the next day or what happened throughout my day today or yesterday. And I ended up purchasing a journal and just writing them out and getting them out of my head and onto paper, and it helped me start sleeping so much better. Reading books, kind of just books that kind of put you in a more positive mood. I've read a lot of books by like Brene Brown and just books that kind of help me figure out where I want to, head in life, love language books. And then yoga has also been a great tool for me. Um, you talked to me a year or two ago and I'd be like, yoga, like that's not, that doesn't do anything for you. One of my ex-girlfriends was like a big yoga person. I was like, you should go to the gym. That's easy, that's a real workout. But I started picking up yoga this past summer and I've loved it. It's
Mm,
helped me physically, mentally, emotionally. And it's such a great tool to kind of help stabilize not only your mind, but your body as well. And so that's one thing I really love to do now. And breathing, you kind of introduced me into that
mm.
with the breathing techniques. And I started taking cold showers recently, and
Yeah.
that's been helping, man.
What do you think about that? Because
So
because people think I'm crazy when I talk about ice baths or cold
yeah,
showers. But what's your experience like?
so with me, I kind of jumped into it after talking to you about it, and then I mean, I started with like 15-second cold showers, and then 30, and then and this week I've been like able to kind of embrace, the coldness and live in that moment. I think what it helps is when you get into these different moments or like your adrenaline, how do you handle that? Like you're in a car accident, are you like freaking out or are you able to adapt to that change? And I think from going from that hot shower to that cold shower, your body's adapting to that change. And if you can kind of normalize adapting to that change, it can help you like in real life. And
Mm,
so I mean, the more I do it, the more I'm starting to feel like, okay, I can handle this.
mm.
Let me think things through. And just in the shower and that cold water is hitting you initially, you're like, oh, I'm gonna shake. But if you tend to like slow your heart rate down, handle your thoughts, I mean, it helps a lot. So I feel like it's been helping me a lot with sleep and with other things in life. So
I love it. So meditation, journaling, yoga, cold showers.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
great tools. Great tools.
So, last question, Avant. There's a lot of individuals right now that are having a difficult time, on the verge of giving up.
Mhm.
They feel defeated, uncertain of the future, maybe fearful of what's coming. Um, what kind of encouragement or advice do you have for them to get unstuck and get them in the direction of having a little bit more of a healthy um, perspective in
Yeah.
their current situation?
Yeah. And I think once you get there, it's you're like trying to dig yourself out of it. And you're like, I don't even know where to start digging.
Yeah.
But I think the first thing you have to do is, seek help. Seek a close friend. Talk to your mom, talk to your dad. I've done plenty of therapy sessions with my son, and
Mm,
I'm no expert on emotions. I might be trying to expertise my emotions, but I didn't study, the brain or like the emotions. So I go to a therapist with my son, and I think that helps because I'm talking with someone who actually studied this for years and
mm,
have talk to many people about the experiences they've been through, and they can help me go through it. And then going through that, hearing that knowledge, attaining that knowledge, and seeing what can help me. What's going to help me move forward. I think when you're going through a tough moment, it's important to say, do I want to get out of this tough moment, or is it something like I kind of like soaking in this misery?
Mm,
You have to mentally tell yourself, I want to get out of this. Just give me a day. Tomorrow I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna go work out. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna meditate, and then slowly start to get yourself out of that misery and into the direction where you want to be.
mm,
And I think it's okay to reach out to friends, reach out to experts, reach out to people that you kind of idolize, and you see them practicing those healthy traits and say, hey, what helps you?
mm,
But for me specifically, what helps me is getting out, working out, riding my bike, going to the gym, reading at night. I mean, those little things, just journaling, they help me tremendously. So
mm.
that's one step I would say is just reaching out first off and kind of going from there.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, absolutely. And something that no one should be ashamed of. I've done plenty of therapy and counseling sessions.
Mhm.
I have multiple coaches. Mentors are so important,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah. For sure.
And it almost feels like whatever you're going through or what we're going through sometimes that we're alone.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more people in the world that are going through very similar
Same
situations.
things. Yeah.
And when we decide to take off the mask and be honest with ourselves and decide to get out of that misery, um, and take action, take ownership of our life, like what you've done,
Mhm.
um, magic can happen at that point when you surrender all
Yeah.
the other shit.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, Avant. You're someone I've always looked up to. You are one of my mentors. You're a great father. You have a beautiful legacy. Like I said, you light up the room every single time. And this has been so enjoyable. So
Likewise,
I
bro.
appreciate you,
I
man.
appreciate being here. It's an honor.
Yeah.
Love talking to
See
you.
you. Love you, brother.
Love you.
So if people want to reach out to you, if they have questions or just connect with you, how will they do that?
So I've kind of tried to limit my, social networking. So gotten rid of everything except for Instagram. I stay on Instagram. You can find me at Avant, AVANTG 23. That's my Instagram handle. Or you can reach out to Dugan. Dugan, I'm fine with you giving people my number if they want to call and chat or
Yeah,
text. But yeah, Instagram's probably the easiest way to get hold of me.
cool. I appreciate it. And for you guys, if you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. We really appreciate your support. And follow us on Instagram as well at A Heroes Academy. But we just want to remind you that we believe in you and everything you're looking for is inside of you. You just have to tap into it. You have to tap into that inner hero. And, I hope you listen to this interview again because there's so much gold that Avant has provided in this space, and I'm so grateful for it. And um, other than that, if you do need help in any way, please reach out to us. Let us know how we can serve you better, and just keep living the best life you can. And we love you. We send you blessings. And until next time, align with your inner hero. See you, man.